Good morning, I'm Sheree Dawson from My Kitchen to Yours, and today I'm going to show you how to make brown tofu. Now the reason we like brown tofu because it's something that can be replaced in a lot of dishes where you would use meat or meat pieces. It also can be done in pasta dishes like noodle stroganoff and even topped on pizzas, and you can cut the tofu in various ways. Today I'm going to show you how I cube it because I like to cut it up and put it in and brown it and put it in my salads. But you can take this same recipe and put it in just about anything. And so you can make crumbles out of it, you can slice it into chunks, and you can also mash it and make, what do you call that stuff? Scrambled tofu. Or you can make it into little tofu bits that you can sprinkle on a salad. So whatever you like, you can do in that. Now the cookbooks we have here, oops, it shows up backwards because it's more real food recipes, and you have real food recipes. And the recipe can be found on page 59 in this particular book. And these books can be ordered from Amazon if you like. And there's a lot of other recipes. Now in my recipe, I'm changing the Bragg's liquid amino for the Tamari. And so I'm going to get started. And I just want to let you know, I love the bridge tofu because it's a lot firmer, doesn't have a lot of water in it, and it's more meaty. Now, if I'm making something like a tofu cheesecake, I would use the softer tofus. And so tofu doesn't have any flavor of its own. It's something that it takes on whatever you put it. That's why it can be used in savory dishes or in desserts like tofu cheesecake or puddings or many things. I can't even think of them all right now, but they're very delicious. Okay, so we're going to get started, and I'm going to show you how I cut up my tofu and brown it in the pan. All right, we'll be back. So I'm back. So the first thing we're going to do is we've rinsed off our tofu after we took it out of the bag, and we're going to cut it in cubes. I like cubes because they go best in my salad. And so that's what I'm going to do first is I'm going to cut these tofu in cubes. So you go slice down on one side, and then you turn it over, and you slice down on the other side. And that's going to give you sticks, which now you're going to cut, and you're going to slice it again, and they're going to make cubes. And so this is my favorite way of having it. There's another way. My daughter likes to just slice it in pieces, random, nothing uniform, but just in different shapes and sizes. Okay, so we have one down. I like to do two so I don't have to do it too many times in a week. It's always best to have food in reserve in the refrigerator so when you need them, it's ready. Okay, so again, we're making the slices on the different sides, and then we're going to cut it again, and that's going to make our cubes. Okay. All right. So now that we have our cubes, they're ready to go into our non-stick ceramic pan. So as you can see, I placed the cube tofu into my non-stick ceramic pan. Now in some tofus, you have a little bit more watery. You can use a tofu press and press out some of the water, or you can cook it out. And as you cook it out, it does firm up. But that's why I like the bridge tofu because it doesn't have a lot of water in it. It's a lot firmer. And so we're going to let it cook down a little bit and let some of the water come out of the tofu, and then we're going to season it. Okay? Hold on. So as you can see, the pan is warm and the tofu is getting brown. And this is the advantage of having a non-stick pan because the tofu is kind of soft and it can stick. So right now, I'm going to toss it so it can be evenly brown, as you can see. And it holds up quite well, as you can see. And that's the way the bridge tofu, which is very firm. Now there are other tofus, but I prefer not to have one with so many additives, such as calcium sulfate. This is a product they use in sheet wrap. And so I choose to have a very plain, the old-fashioned way of making the tofu with the nigari. Okay? So the next item we place in the pan is tahini. And we use the organic pure ground sesame tahini, and instead of using oil, and I actually have tried it with oil, and I prefer having the tahini. It gives more flavor and puts more of a crust on the tofu. And so we're going to stir that in. When you go under, you don't want to break it and stir it really hard. You want to go under and toss. Under and toss. Now, as you can see, most of the pieces are covered with the tahini, and that's going to allow them to brown. So let's give that a chance to start browning, and then we'll be back. So as you can see, the tofu pieces are more browned. And now we're going to use our seasonings. It's time to put the seasoning in it. And so I make my own blends. You can use garlic powder, onion powder, oregano, or some other type of herbal seasoning, whatever your choice is, because tofu takes on whatever you put on it. But I tend to make my own seasoning. This is my chili seasoning. Then I have one with the fajita seasoning that I use and make. I have a taco seasoning, and I use that in my tofu sometimes. And then I make my own Caribbean jerk. Now I have recipes for these, and the reason I make my own is because I've noticed that a lot of the seasonings have natural flavoring, which could be an excitotoxin. And we can talk about that at another time. And let's turn our tofu, because it can burn very quickly at this point because it's more dry, and it's ready to take on some seasoning. So I use quite a bit of seasoning. This morning I'm going to use my Cajun seasoning for a little kick. And you can use these seasonings in anything you like, but I like them mostly in the tofu. I can change up the flavor. And you see I use a lot, but I have 2 cakes here, and I'm going to toss that in so that every piece of tofu, cube tofu, is covered. Sometimes, depending on what you have in your seasoning, it can make you cough, especially if you have cayenne in there. Okay, we're going to let that sit a few minutes, and then we'll be back. So as you see, most of the tofu pieces are brown. You can get a little dark if you like, but that's going to happen for me when I use my tamari. And I use the Sanjay organic tamari, gluten-free soy sauce replacement, and it's made without any wheat. Okay? And so that's what I'm going to put on there. It's going to be like a stir fry now. You're going to get lots of steam. The flavors are going to get spread in the house. And you want to toss that to every piece. See how nice the tofu takes on the sauce. And it's going to dry up. I want to cook it till it's a little dry, so I know that the tofu pieces are covered and coated, and the coating is going to remain. Okay, so just a few more minutes and they'll be dried up and ready to use. I'll be back. Now the tofu is nicely browned and dried out a little bit. I'm going to let it cool, and then I put it in my refrigerator, and I like it on my salads. but I said you can use it in other dishes that you may like, even in stir fries. So I hope you learned a lot from this and enjoy from my kitchen to yours.